Military Snapshot. For many of the men and women of our U.S. Army National Guard, the moment their boots hit Afghan or Iraqi soil will be the first time they will have set foot in a truly hostile environment. And in these countries, in these battles, the enemy has proven to be a ruthless foe that places no value on life.
What I saw for the year I was there and what we've been reading, it's a combination of former Ba'ath Party loyalists, Islamic extremists, and you also have a significant criminal element. Very capable, maybe not the best trained, but they've been fighting now for several years, so they're becoming more lethal, more aggressive, maybe smaller. They operate in small individual cells that are not necessarily tied together, but operate with a common motive.
While the U.S. military prides itself on being the most skilled fighting force in the world, the contemporary operating environment in Iraq requires our soldiers to develop multiple skill sets that will prepare them for the various tactics being employed by the enemy.
Based on what's going on in theater and following 9/11, the threat has changed. We've identified a new threat. Cold War is over. And the Army is transitioning and changing as the current operating environment dictates. The Army is responsive to the threat. So, the training methodology is the same. Training mission and task focus is different. Current threat in theater is based on an asymmetric battlefield. There is no FEBA as we once know. There is no front line. It's all front line. Young commanders going into theater over there are faced with more than I was ever faced with at a company level. You got a company commander, an 03, that's faced with doing civil affairs, PSYOPs. You're doing it all. We, the older generation, never faced that until we got to battalion and brigade command levels. So these soldiers are stepping up. The young soldiers of today's Army is ones taking the battle to the enemy.
The National Training Center and the Joint Readiness Training Center have adapted to the times. They have refined the training environment that they deliver to the units that rotate through there. And frankly, there's nothing better for our soldiers before they get into combat. But in years past, again, they provided the best training environment that was needed, but it was for a different fight. It was for a large-scale maneuver battle, primarily against a Cold War threat. That's not what's being faced in theater today. Our soldiers are operating largely across small unit actions distributed on non-contiguous terrain. It's a complex fight, and a very complex fight for those commanders. They have ongoing missions that they must direct, command, and control, and yet they still have a main effort for that operation. So their task, of course, is to balance their assets, and especially their soldier assets, so that they can maintain the ongoing missions and achieve effects onto the main effort.
To better prepare our National Guard for the reality of the battlefield environment in Iraq, a new program known as the Exportable Combat Training Capability, or XCTC for short, has been developed.
This is the first full-up XCTC. It's battalion level FTX instrumented down to the individual soldier level. The Army National Guard will have a requirement to provide 6 brigades worth of this capability on an annual basis in support of the Army Force Generation requirements. We're involved in the war fight. The Army National Guard soldiers are training, deploying, and fighting just as the AC active component soldiers are doing. And this is one of the tools we're using to deliver training in the right capacities at the right locations for the Army National Guard contribution to the war on terror.
The training incorporates multiple technologies and training methodologies to bring a very realistic combat environment to our troops.
The technologies incorporated into the XCTC include vehicle instrumentation and soldier instrumentation. It provides an ability to track the soldiers and their actions on the battlefield in 2D and 3D, provides a AAR capability. They draw upon a Miles 2000 system. Obviously, that provides target effect, and we can determine who's been hit and who's not been hit. We have observer controllers from the 1st Army. We have linguists, civilians on the battlefield, role players, and enemy cadre We also have battlefield effects, and of course, the Blue Force soldiers from the Kentucky Army National Guard.
There have been several environmental assets that we brought into this exercise, to include hiring local civilians to act as villagers in these mount cities that we have here. We've had 3 mount cities built on this site so the soldiers can operate in these cities. We've hired Mexican or Spanish-speaking individuals so that there's a different language. There's a language barrier. They have to use interpreters. We brought pyrotechnics in to act as improvised explosive devices to give realism to the soldiers so they feel like they're in theater and they've got that real feeling of operating in that contemporary operating environment.
In the future, the live exercise will be integrated with simulated training and constructive system training located at National Guard locations nationwide.
We have a task, and that is to get soldiers ready for battle. That's serious business, and we've got to get it right. And in this particular case, we've got to provide conditions that replicate as closely as possible what the soldiers will face in battle. We've incorporated many combat veterans, as well as experienced personnel from the Joint Readiness Training Center, as well as the National Training Center, into this exercise to provide those conditions and those tasks that we will expect the soldiers to operate within, and the tasks that they'll have to operate or execute in theater.
The training does not stop when the exercise concludes. Upon completion, the troops convene for their after-action review. The entire drill, live and simulated, can be replayed instantly using 2D, 3D, and live video. Additionally, each soldier involved in the exercise receives a copy of the exercise on CD for further analysis at home.
The CD-ROM that we're going to get is going to be extremely useful. First of all, for recruiting and retention. We do several recruiting blitzes throughout the year trying to bring interest into the Kentucky National Guard. We can take these CDs now and plug them in and show just what type of quality training that our soldiers get in the events that we put on. And also, it's going to be a great tool for commanders and for leaders to take back and sit down at home station during an IDT when they're at drill and show these soldiers, hey, this is you clearing the room. These are some good things that you did. These are some things that we need to work on. To help them develop some standing operating procedures is just going to enhance their readiness.
xctc was designed with mobility in mind. This program can be brought to any Army National Guard location across the United States for effective pre-deployment combat training close to home.
The training environment for the Army National Guard and any reserve component soldier, frankly, is one of soldiers dispersed over a wide area, sometimes several hundred square miles, and sometimes across state borders. That's somewhat different from the training environment that active component soldiers generally find themselves in, and that's one of dense populations of soldiers located at any given installation. For them, the training critical path really is one of physical capacity and scheduling. How do you get the soldiers through a training asset or a maneuver area? For the Army Guard, it's slightly different, and that is, how do we minimize the training time or the travel time to get the soldiers to the training? The best option is to bring the training to the soldier. The exportable combat training capability does just that. It brings battlefield conditions, or as near as we can get them, to the unit's location. And if training is not readily doable, it tends to not get done.
The mobility of this system enables the troops to train in local training areas, home station. They don't have to go to Fort Irwin, California, or JRTC at Fort Polk, Louisiana to get the same technologies. They can do it at home station. Troops they're fired up about it. I mean, it enhances their ability to see their performance, then go back and recock and redo it again until they get it correct.
The initial response for this method of training has been very positive.
The ability to use this and see what they've done, their actions on the objectives, enhances their readiness. They think it's great.
As far as implementing different assets, as far as air, artillery, armor, all into one exercise, and having that collective supporting arms training, as far as just within the Kentucky National Guard, it's a rare instance that we get all that together. On the ground, what the impact of the funding has been on our training, it really just elevates it to a higher level. And as far as myself and others within our unit, other than traveling to one of the regional or national training sites, we don't see this same level of training within the state of Kentucky, and having it here close to our home station within easy driving time is really a large plus for us. If we were to be deployed somewhere, our soldiers would be better trained.
I spent about a year training the Army National Guard and reservists as they prepare to mobilize, and what I've seen is a continuous improvement in the realistic training, training units to tough, hard standards. And this right here I think is probably the best training event that I've been part of, bringing everything to the fight, an enemy and civilians on the battlefield and battlefield effects that are very realistic, tough, continuous standards that the soldiers have to fight through. So I was very impressed with this training event and the unit.
As more of our National Guard is called up to help secure Iraq and Afghanistan, the utilization of advanced real-world training methods prior to deployment may better prepare them both mentally and physically for the reality of the mission ahead. For more information about military technologies that protect and aid our troops, please visit www.army.mil. The Military Snapshot staff would like to extend a special thank you to our men and women in uniform. We are very proud and grateful for your outstanding performance in service to our country.